Venkatesh sir, Venkatesh sir, can we begin? Audible, Venkatesh sir?
You're audible, yeah?
Yeah, are you ready? Can we start? Okay. So welcome everyone and a very warm good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Power Talk with Leaders, an insightful conversation on EHS compliance. We're truly excited to host this session where we bring together experience, insight, and practical wisdom from leaders who have shaped the environmental and compliance landscape in India and beyond. So today's discussion is not just about regulations, it's about leadership, accountability, governance, responsibility, and the evolving role of EHS compliance in sustainable growth. So let me begin by introducing our first esteemed speaker, Dr. Dilip Boralkar, who is a distinguished environmental expert with over 50 plus years of experience in pollution control, environmental assessment, and regulatory leadership. He has served as the former member secretary of Maharashtra Pollution Control Board and is widely recognized for driving impactful reforms through transparent governance and public-private partnerships. A recipient of multiple national and international awards, he currently serves as a freelance senior scientist advising organizations on sustainable environmental practices. Dr. Boralkar, we are truly honored to have you with us today. A very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to our second distinguished speaker, Dr. S. Venkatesh, who is a multidisciplinary professional with over 23 years of global experience across academia, industry, research, and law. He is a former practicing advocate with expertise in statutory compliance, intellectual property, techno-legal, and standards. An environmentalist and legal strategist with both litigation and advisory experience. He has been recognized as a fellow and an award-winning educator. He brings a rare combination of scientific rigor, industry insight, and a legal acumen to every engagement. Dr. Venkatesh, we are delighted to have you with us. A very warm welcome to you as well, sir.
Thank you, Catherine.
This session will unfold as an engaging exchange of perspectives with insightful questions guiding the conversation and experience-driven reflections offering practical wisdom from years of regulatory leadership. So before starting the session, I would request everyone to pose their questions in the Q&A section. We will address the questions after the sessions gets over. So with that, I now invite our esteemed speakers to enlighten us with their insights. Let's begin.
Thank you, Catherine. Personal warm welcome to Dr. Boralkar, sir. Thank you very much, sir. And I think it's a real pleasure and honor to be interacting with you. I will start with the disclaimer. SAR's experience is wide range, so it will be more of a learning session for myself as well. Okay, sir. So with that, so what we have done is thought about this. We will have some structured questions, and depending on how it unfolds, we will carry forward, sir, from various aspects of EHS compliance, because we have a mixed audience across the industry. So we will go that way, and then we will open the floor for Q&A from our participants, sir. Okay. So with your permission, I would like to start with the first thing is just to set the context, and given your wide experience across multiple decades, if you can share your thoughts, maybe 4 minutes on how you have seen the regulatory landscape has evolved in these 5 decades. Maybe just to set the context and get the ball rolling. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Venkatesh and Catherine, for organizing and giving me the opportunity. It's my really pleasure, and I always like interacting with people, especially nowadays. I can see there are a number of young people here, and that reflects the interest and they're in environment protection in general, and particularly the environmental sustainable governance. Now, uh, you asked a very wide question, basically. Uh, Actually, the environment pollution regulation has evolved greatly in our country, especially after 1972, when we had the Water Pollution Control Act. After actually 1972 is a big watershed year where we have had the Forest Conservation Act, Wildlife Protection Act, Project Tiger. Then we had the Stockholm Conference arranged by United Nations on Man and Environment in 1972, June 5th at Stockholm, where we were the major participants in that. One of the major participants, or rather only participant, India was. The delegation was led by the Prime Minister. So that shows the importance of the environment and its conservation and nature and natural resources that we attached historically. And there has been a great political will for doing this, which was really later translated into the administrative uh, realities in terms of promulgation of various acts. And I feel very honored and lucky that since 1975-76, I've been involved as a young boy, as a research student and assistant working in the government of Maharashtra at that time, and continued till date. The number of reforms, the environment pollution, basically for us is mainly for you generally is quality of life we are talking of. But as per our Indian situation is concerned, our biggest problem of environment is the poverty. If you see the population and the environment related issues to the population and so on and so forth. So our priority has been 1947 onwards was to improve the quality of life in general and sustainability, health, education and all these things. So environment was definitely linked to the whole thing. You know, if you protect the environment, indirectly you are improving the quality of life, then health and hygiene. And so this was the really concern, and that was linked by our forefathers, leaders at that time. That environment is important for us, not only for environment's sake, but overall quality of life development. And fortunately, or incidentally rather, not fortunately, unfortunately, the development and planning, or planning and development went hand in hand together, because there was no time for planning and then you wait for the planning and then you implement, because the urgency was there, because in 47 situation was not very good and a lot of things have to be done, and of course the time was less, resources were less. So environment, coming to the back, the next point is the, however, the public awareness on the environment was not very high priority. Actually, in 1974, after Water Act, some boards were formed, some state did not form, but it was more or less on a formal basis. But in 1981, then we had the Air Pollution Control Act, which was actually residual action of the Water Act 1974 onwards. It could not have been passed. The 1984 came a big event, or rather unfortunate catastrophe that took place in Bhopal, a gas tragedy where methyl isocyanate gas from a pesticide manufacturing unit was accidentally released, and there were a number of casualties and environmental impact was seen. And there we realized that there is a serious lacuna or lacunae in our environmental governance in terms of even availability of legislation. So lot of legislations were followed after that. First was Environment Protection Act that came in 1986. Then it was followed by various rules. hazardous waste management. Then we had hazardous chemicals, manufacturing, storage, handling rules, fly ash, then biomedical waste, municipal solid waste, then a plethora of rules which are actually under the umbrella of Environment Protection Act. So these rules and all the things, and then slowly the regulation has becoming more and more wide and covering. However, all these things were happening. It came in the late 90s or mid 90s onwards, where the corporate and industry particularly was not considering it as a necessity or a compulsion or rather incentive or whatever. It was just for them, it is a side thing, okay, we need a certificate, so let's have one. But the things were not serious. And most importantly, there was the expenses or the expenditure on the pollution control, environment protection, etc., were not internalized by the corporate. They always consider it as a liability, externality, and all efforts were made either to duck them, avoid them, delay them, and so on and so forth. And the judicial system was also not so effective at that time, which could take some long time, and then it was happening. So then in the National Green Tribunal was formed, and we had historical judgments from the Supreme Court, polluter pays principle, then estoppel principle of polluter pays principle, and there's one more thing. Let me recall it. So these things
precautionary principles.
Precautionary principle. Sorry, precautionary principle, and this came in this Tamil Nadu's North Arcot district tannery case. So these things, and then finally in late 90s, the Central Pollution Control Board felt that there has to be an effective participation by the corporate, and there should be a corporate social responsibility for environment protection. We call it as CREP, Corporate Responsibility for Environment Protection, CREP. We introduced this program in the year 2001 when I was in the CPCB and the Ministry of Environment Forest. At that time, Mr. T.R. Balu was Minister for Environment. And 16 sectors were identified, which are major air polluting, water polluting, and hazardous waste, hazardous chemicals handling units. And we had one-to-one dialogue with each sectors, with their representatives, their industries, associations, and so on and so forth. And then we evolved that, yes, this has to be done. And then matter was again taken up with the Ministry of Company Corporate Affairs, that when your annual audits are being submitted by the industry, there has to be something on environment compliance, and they should report to what is happening or what they are doing. And then those standards, basically our emphasis was on to the compliance of the standards of water quality or water, liquid effluent, wastewater, gaseous emissions, and the solid waste arising from the industrial processes. So these things then slowly got internalized. Then came the problem of technologies because the achieving compliance was again a costly matter, and it was also depending on the availability and accessibility to the technology in the environment protection. Like you have scrubber and then electrostatic precipitators and kinds of wastewater systems, purification systems, and so on. So there the technology was again a constraint, and availability or rather accessibility, not the constraint, and the finance for it. So the ministry, then we had taken up the matter with the World Bank. World Bank gave us the assistance, and then the corporate also realized, and then they took it also in a very positive manner. And with the now ESG reporting, BRSR reporting has come up. Is a process of evolution that has taken place over so many years. However, while doing all these things, there was a in the corporate, again, corporate is not of same size and same strength. The large and medium have one set of situation in terms of environment, and then we have these small and medium enterprises. So medium and small enterprises industries were having the problem of technology availability, number one, and the economic capacity to access to the technology. And if they could do this both, then they were not viable. So it was like operation successful, patient died. So there cannot be the situation. And we also were having problem of enforcing the law, because these are the small units. They generate small quantity of effluent, but their toxicity in terms of required treatment is very high, and they cannot afford that much. So we brought into a concept of common environmental infrastructure in the clusters, industrial clusters, where for small and medium enterprises are there. So we came up with a project or a scheme of common effluent treatment plant in the clusters, where the government offered 50% of capital subsidy, 25% by the state, 25% by the center. And with the World Bank assistance and the Indian our internal resource allocations, 35% of loan assistance was provided with soft loan, you can call it, with lower rates of interest. Then land was provided almost free for setting up the effluent treatment plant in the clusters, industrial clusters, private as well as in the public sector. The 15% has to come from the small and medium enterprises. And there they have to form association, and then association will run the thing. And the technical guidance was provided by the National Environmental Engineering Research Institute at Nagpur. And we provided all those facilities. And those MSMEs who did not support or actively participate were taken to the task, and others were very happy with this. Then there was again a problem that when the effluent is so small quantity, in small quantities, transportation of the effluent from the industrial unit till the common effluent treatment plant, because it is at the one side of industrial area, and the effluent has to be conveyed to the site of CETP for treatment, and the treated water is to be disposed as per the provisions under the Water Act. So large industries were requested to join so that we get enough flow in the pipeline that carrying the effluent, because our industrial clusters are mixed clusters. There is small, medium, large, they all coexist in one industrial area as one major industry, and then others are supporting ancillaries and so on. So this is how the whole scenario is developing. And nowadays, now coming to the current scenario, we have new things which have come in last 2-3 years, 4 years. Now we have extended producers' responsibilities there, which is a new thing, which is actually evolution of the last so many years of implementation. The extended producer responsibility is a beyond compliance. Not only you comply in your battery limits of the effluents, but what happens to your product, how you use them, raw materials, what is the, because performance will be the same, but the manufacturing stream and processes could be different, and those processes could be different in terms of their environmental impacts. So these are the things now we are going more and more into it rather. Then we have the philosophy of reduction. You know, it is best a good idea to reduce the waste rather than produce and then treat and dispose and all that. So we have now come up with the recycling policy and philosophy in a very big manner. And it is not only enforced but also encouraged, and some incentives are also provided to the various stakeholders. So that is another thing, you know, recycling. And the third thing which is new is the whatever waste are hazardous waste which are being disposed. Now the new renewed efforts are made to reuse them, recycle them, or convert them into useful products or some byproducts, or make them non-hazardous or non-harmful. Similarly, these are the things which is again a new thing. Then use of hazardous chemicals or processes, like you have nowadays batteries, new car batteries coming up with more than 40% of recycled lead. Then you have the secondary zinc, secondary lead, and even in the building material debris is also now getting recycled, plastics. So these are the things which are incentivized as a matter of policy, and huge allocations have been made by the government on this issue. Like say, for example, Swachh Bharat Mission. Uh, I don't remember this year's figures, but last year and but one we had 1,40,000 plus crores of rupees for Swachh Bharat, which included the toilets and sanitation facilities in class 1, class 2 or 3, tier 1, tier 2, 3 cities. Plus, this also included municipal solid waste management, because our cities are generating huge quantities of solid waste and they need to be properly collected, transported, treated, and disposed. So there is also the issue of solid waste accumulated over the periods. So many dumps are there, legacy waste accumulated in various cities. So these are the new things which has come up in Chennai recently. One agency has cleared 96 acres of land which was actually occupied by a legacy waste, and that land is so clean now. An international conference of investors was held on that site. So these are the things new coming up. Yeah, it's only one example. I can give half a dozen more such examples where the government has come up with incentives and schemes. They have standardized the rates and so on. Now, there is a much more thing is required, I think, in terms of reporting now, BRSR, I come to that, where now I think they have made it mandatory to only few 500 industries. In coming years, that may go up, and now even those vendors which are attached with these 500 major top industries, listed industries, will also have to comply with. And lastly, I think I can go on. The international scenario actually is you have to, if you are to live in the global environment and market, then you have to comply with the global standards for export, import. So now there are different standards. Some of them you can call as the non-tariff barriers also. But these things are required, and for export you need to comply. So in conclusion, I can say that environment is definitely now a priority. It's coming up. There are many issues, like we can talk of environmental education, environmental activism, environmental legal jurisprudence, and so on. But I only described as far as possible, restricting to the enforcement. But last and most important question you could still ask is, even today, our cities are not with clean air, our water is contaminated, and we are choked up with cities. But that is a different aspect, different reasons we can discuss later on in subsequent question answers.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for the detailed recap of 50 years, and all the way from the Water Act and the convention and the recent thing. Just a little, we will take a little deviation, since you had mentioned the BSR, ESG and BRSR. I would like to, check with your thoughts on, because we have mostly the industrial, audience, and I believe there are some other academic interest audience also. Just take a detour and we will come back, sir. So how do you think, the ESG framework and BRSR framework disclosure is really reshaping our traditional environment compliance framework, sir, because it has gone from just compliance, regulatory things, it has gone to the boardroom level now. And like you clearly elucidated, I think the compliance, especially ESG, is at the boardroom level now, and various players like SEBI and are getting involved. So how do you think that is reshaping the traditional notion of compliance frameworks? If you can briefly touch upon, then we will come back to our things, sir. Thank you, sir.
First of all, let me apologize for not being very much expert or lot of insight in this area, because it's a new one. In last 2-3 years it has come up. But I think the ESG or BRSR, in the corporate sector, there are 4 various stakeholders, and all the 4 have different interests and priorities. The question, for example, if it is in the boardroom, the board is more interested in inviting or getting more and more investors, and the image of the board of the corporate in terms of environment, which is beneficial or complementary to the promoting or developing business. And third is the profitability and loss. So they really don't bother. I mean, their priority is only these 3 things. If you come to the below, at shop level, there the production is the priority. The works manager or the floor shop manager, he doesn't much bother about the other things. He has his targets. This is what I have seen. He doesn't know what is ESG, what is BSR, SR. I don't care. He has to complete the production targets in terms of quantity and quality and so on. So there, this is another thing. Then we have the ESG guy in the floor. So he has his priority. He wants to deal with the vendors, their carbon footprint and all those things. So this is a marketing fellow has a different. So I think that is the important challenge for the corporate to integrate this message, which I am seeing in some of the corporates. This is really happening in a very nice way. It's not right at this point of time to name them, but this is what I feel they have been able to challenge. And especially the new ones I am seeing, especially the multinationals with collaborations, Indian counterparts, they are coming up with new units which are really good, state of the art, and where you will find all the management system and operating system in terms of ESG and BRSR reporting is effectively working. And the 4th factor was the environment related people, their allocations for them in terms of their requirement, for providing the effluent treatment technology, monitoring equipments, the staff. So these are the things which I think will need more and more integration and coherence in the coming years, because BRSR reporting is only just 2-3 years old. So over the period, I think it will come.
Thank you, sir. I think just to add from an this side of the spectrum, I think this has given us great opportunity for Aparajita as well. So we are into that space of helping the industry to come up with terms with the ever dynamic evaluation and changes in the regulatory framework. Thank you, sir. So coming back, you touched upon nicely on the various enforcement, starting with the lack of awareness to the enforcement, changes and how it really doesn't fully impact the boardroom level. But looking at the recent cases, the judicial activism, and not to mention the great importance of NGT judgments and all, if you can briefly touch upon few cases, we know very well the pioneer MC Mehta and Justice Kuldeep Singh and all the great, you already touched upon the political principle and all. So if you can briefly talk about the recent thing in respect of the environmental clearance, sir. So you are familiar with this, there was whether retro aspect is applicable, whether it is prospective and all. And from your discussion, it's very clear that the things started way back in 2001 itself, sir. And this environment impact notification came few years later.
Yeah.
So if you can briefly touch upon this environmental clearance, it seems there is still some lack of awareness about the compliance framework, how it has evolved, and the impact and the influence of judiciary. That would be great, sir.
Environmental clearance. Actually, to begin with, as you rightly pointed out, in 2006, we had a EC regulation coming into force. But before that, we had the environmental impact assessment requirement in 1995. And but it was more related to the prior NOC, no objection certificate. It was not environment clearance per se as it is today. And before that also it was only a recommendation. Starting from 1984, 85 onwards, CPCB was pursuing the Ministry of Industries and Commerce that you should have such major projects when you are taking up, you should have prior environmental impact assessment. And based on the impact assessment, you create a environmental management plan, and that should become integral part of the development of the project, or rather part of the feasibility of the project, whatever you are coming up. So this initially it was for 16 categories. Then in 2006 we had some 32 categories were covered. So you ask this question, this environmental impact assessment essentially has different components: social, economic, and environmental. Environment deals with water, air, and soil, and uh, technology applications, which technologies used, whether there are any options. So all these things will have to be taken up, and most importantly, there was a public consultation necessary, because whenever any area is being taken for the development, there are stakeholders, and every stakeholder has to be consulted. So there was a need felt as a part of open, transparent system that you should have consultation and transparency in whatever project you are taking up. So that was a new thing which has come up in 2006 and so on and so forth. Now, this is all very good to say, but when it comes to implementation, there were issues, because number of projects without any impact, there cannot be a project. There has to be some impact. And now the beauty of the system, or the real crux of the matter, is how do you manage that impact? And there we have number of issues there at that time. And these issues were exposed or highlighted or enlarged by the active social people, and rightly so, many times. So these were not properly being addressed by the regulator as well as the project proponent, and therefore they had to go to the judiciary. For example, we have the air pollution in Delhi, or groundwater contamination in Tamil Nadu, or groundwater contamination in Gujarat. For that matter, in Maharashtra, we had the industrial pollution along the coastal areas from Ratnagiri to down below, from Tarapur on the top to Ratnagiri down below. And various states in Rajasthan also, we had similar problems. Ganga, of course, is a major thing, So all these things were actually, it was a struggle between the development, economic, social, and environmental requirements. And many times environmental requirements were quite cumbersome and difficult to comply in a rightful manner and to the satisfaction of the stakeholders. There were technological limitations, and in some cases, many cases rather, there was intentionally negligence or violations were there. And how the way the regulation has evolved, number one. Second, the way industrial sector has evolved in terms of various products, their technologies, and various things. the enforcement mechanism or enforcement apparatus has not developed. So I am trying to give you the reasons as far as my understanding is concerned. And such effects were, whether they were genuine or reasonable or not, the affected people don't bother about it, and they will definitely need to be addressed. So therefore, the courts have come up. So there have been number of such cases, and monumental judgments were given, and definitely such judicial interventions have helped in shaping the environment regulation system in our country. For example, now we had a public interest litigation on municipal solid waste in the Supreme Court that culminated into notification or promulgation of municipal solid waste management rules in the year 2000. Similarly, we had biomedical waste, hospital and healthcare establishments were so neglected even by the pollution control boards. A lot of waste which was coming from the hospital was making 100 times more people sick than they were treating inside the hospital. So this was a very serious and many such diseases were even community affected. You know, syringes and the reuse of the waste coming from the hospital, which is toxic or infectious. Those were really serious problems. So there was no law until 2000. So this is again the outcome of judicial activism. Similarly, air pollution in Delhi, we had the Supreme Court intervention where there was a Bhurelal Committee or Bhurelal Authority for Environment Protection Authority was set up. So number of things were done by the court's order, by the government of Union Territory as well as the central union government. But many things have taken place. But however, the growth, the cities and the areas is so high that the infrastructure cannot match with the continuously growing need. You know, whether it is traffic, it is the population. So definitely, then you need more water, so more wastewater. So it is continuous race which is going on. However, this is the role of judiciary has definitely helped. And one more such successful example I can give is of the hazardous waste, industrial hazardous waste. In 1995, situation was very bad. When court asked the government that how many hazardous waste generating industries are there in India, number one, how much is the quantity of hazardous waste generated by them? Third, whether these industries are authorized or authorization has been issued by the board as per the SW rules. So how many authorizations are issued? And fourth, how many waste sites, dump sites or the hazardous waste management sites have been created? And fifth, what are the laboratory facilities and staff? So all the 5 questions, answer was 0. And the Justice Kuldeep Singh fired left, right, and center and said, "What is this? You know, you are having 10 years of, not 10 years, yes, so many years of the regulation and nothing has happened." So they formed a high power committee, then committee gave the recommendations, and those recommendations were accepted by the court. Another committee was appointed by the court as a monitoring committee, and every 3 months affidavits were filed and compliance reported. As a result, today, if you see, there is no hazardous waste problem as far as the industries is concerned, because we have successfully created an waste management system. And if you go through the rules, hazardous waste rules 2003 as well as 2008 and now recently 2016, these rules are made in such a manner that they enable the compliance. As you read the rules from 1 to 16 or 17, you reach the compliance. All the difficulties, impediments were addressed and solutions were given in the rule. So the role of judiciary is definitely important and very positive. There are some failures also. Many times, as per now, I can tell you about my personal experience in this is judiciary, whatever failures people are talking of, is not actually a failure. It is a failure of the response of the respondents, which is essentially or most of the time is the government or the pollution control boards. the respondents. And the court goes by what is placed before them. Experts place before them an advice, regulator place before them the policy framework and so on and so forth, and various kinds of evidences, and then judiciary gives the pronunciation or orders on that. They don't create their own, basically. In generally, of course, they have all the rights and they do review with all the jurisprudence they do. But important is that to provide them. So they are the support of the respondents, particularly the government side, is inadequate, and there the things come. Number of experts. Recently, I will give you an example. In Arauli case, for example, or there is one case in Bombay High Court also. The expert committee has given a report. Now, that report, if it is accepted, then you have seen what has happened in Arauli case. So, whom to blame, whether expert committee or the court or that? And in one case in Bombay High Court, we have one recently, last 2 or 3 weeks case is there, where the expert committee, High Court has observed that entire report is wishy-washy. So experts are also failing. Expert means I include the regulator and the experts because they are part of the regulatory system only when they are borrowed by the regulator to form in the work and the committee. So there, I think we have real challenge in environment where the regulator is required to be more and more strong. See, we have Atomic Energy Commission. We have the Department of Science and Technology where space program is there. Atomic energy programs. These are very high technical, high intelligent quality requirements, and what kind of people are there. Now you come to the environment for that matter. The kind of problem they have faced and the kind of expertise available. Because what happens, NGOs are more knowledgeable with more resources and they are able to report so many things. In Tamil Nadu, I know one case where the NGO from city has analyzed those air pollutants in the air, which Tamil Nadu board did not have the capacity to even analyze them or take the sample. So that kind of matching is required. So there, what you need is basically political will, and unless these are the things which are really lacking, and they need to be properly understood. I hope I have been able to address the question you raised.
Thank you, sir. So another thing is, in my limited experience, compared to yourself, sir, there is a perception and that there many a times the consent under Air Act and Water Act, the combined consent, they are confusing that with the environment clearance. Yeah, I think we need to distinguish these two things. Environment clearance is only for certain category of industries, activities, processes which are in the schedule, and only those. But sometimes people use these two terms interchangeably. So maybe you can share briefly your thoughts on how to align the industrial, for the benefit of our audience. If you can briefly tell the compliance requirements, the regulatory compliance requirement between these two from your experience, that would be great, sir. So that there is no pitfall in managing these concerns. Now everything is tech driven and all. So that's why, sir. Thank you.
See, basically environment clearance and consent. Consent is under the Water Act or Air Act. So Air Act consent deals with only air emissions, air pollution related issues. Water consent deals with the water pollution and water pollution, wastewater treatment, only this aspect, nothing else. And then we have hazardous waste rules. They deal with industrial hazardous waste defined in the rule. Whatever is not covered under Air Act, not covered under Water Act, and that is covered under the hazardous waste, solid waste. So you have liquid waste and solid. But suppose you have an industry on the bank of river and you have complied with water, air, everything is in compliance. Your wastewater is treated, fully as per desire. And then you have the air emissions fully controlled. No, everything is fine, going well, no problem. Out of 365 days, 364 days you are in very good compliance, no problem. One fine day, something happens, either naturally by negligence or something, and or flood, for example, or the storm, tornado, whatever thing is, anything can happen. It's a natural thing, force majeure. So if your effluent tank bursts, or there is a rusting and some maintenance problem, or something happens and the water goes into the river, you will be labeled as a villain. 364 days you are complying, that nobody will remember. But one day your non-compliance will yield what? Huge impact. So under that situation, the best solution is, when you are putting up the industry, if you are given a proper location, rather than giving clearance on the bank of river, I should have asked you, my dear, you don't come here, go a little 4 kilometers inside. So there is a possibility that you can take some precautionary measures, but you are on the bank of river, what will you do? So these type of issues are taken care in environmental clearance. Number one, where the siting of the industry is taken into account. In water pollution, air pollution consent, we don't care. We say how many tons of waste generated. You say, okay, 10 tons. I say, do this thing, and this is finished. But the location is very important. Then there are other issues like social issues. Whether you are near the school, whether you are near the community, religious places. So all these aspects have to be covered under the environmental. Number three.
And one more thing, sorry, sir. I think one more critical factor is you mentioned is about the ecological sensitive zones. We have coastal regulation. So the location plays a very important factor in EC compared to the consent manager.
Yes. So that
sorry
is
for the interruption.
social factors. Because some people they will be sensitive to suppose there's a meat factory, a slaughterhouse. I mean, I have experienced these cases in Goa where there was a slaughterhouse. So people were opposing. Suppose if it is, everything is clear, it is location is clean, water pollution zero, air pollution. But in the neighborhood, people would not like to have slaughterhouse. What to do?
That's why you mentioned about the social impact, in the part of impact assessment.
Yes. And there are some things that they are maybe on the ecology, then social, education, and then these types of things are taken into environment clearance, and most importantly, the public consultation. This is the main thing in environment clearance, which is not the case in consent. We don't consult anybody before granting the consent. Only thing is, after granting, it is important for the board to put up on the public domain. That's all. But in environment clearance, you can't give the environment clearance without public hearing. There are cases, I remember one case in Goa long back in it was Nylon 66 plant, very good plant. There was no environmental impact. I was the person responsible for entire investigation and granting the clearance. Main reason. Everything was clear. Nobody objected on environment, but the people did not want that plant. So there was agitation almost for 3 years. So government has to take a stand. No, why people don't want, we don't want. So that plant didn't come there. Or like copper smelter in Ratnagiri, many cases are there. So environmental clearance is a wide aspect. It deals with the technology also. What technology you are using in the manufacturing process, and whether there are any options. Technology process which is generating less effluent will be more preferred. And all these things, is taken. How much is the impact on the natural resources, plants, soil, wildlife, aviation, flora, flora and fauna, wildlife, then your general species. So eco-sensitive word which you have used. So these are the things in environmental clearance. Consent doesn't deal with.
Nice, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for making the distinction very clear. And just to add to it, you started nicely with the 365, 4 days and all. And I think this is the CEMS system. I think this is a great game changer, I believe, sir. The continuous emission monitoring system. So that, and I believe, I'm not sure about the pan India situation, at least a few states, at least in Tamil Nadu, major industries, they've incorporated the sensors and all. So maybe if you can quickly tell the latest position with this CES for the air quality, and similarly, if they can have such systems for the water as well. Maybe you can briefly touch upon that state, about that, sir.
Give me a second. Give me a second.
Yes, yes, sir.
अबे जरा पानी दे लो. You see, the continuous emission monitoring system is a very good system, most desirable, but there are so many practical difficulties in this. See, I mean, let me take you a little back. Why we have the continuous emission monitoring system? For example, the Environment Protection Regulation is a criminal law in our country. It's not a civil law. Unlike in Europe and other countries, where the environment regulation is a civil law, where there is a penalty you can pay and get rid of it. In civil laws, many cases, violations are dealt with penalties. But in environment, it is not. In case of India, we have criminal procedure code. So these type of emission systems were present or prevalent in Europe, where you have the effluent monitoring system. Automatically, suppose an industrial effluent is linked with automatic monitoring system online, and the display is in the regulator's office and the industry's office. So if the BOD goes up to, or the dissolved oxygen goes so more than the stipulated limit, if the violation is there, then they have fixed the fine. So if you suppose your BOD or goes up by against 10, if it is 15, then it's a minor violation, you have X amount of fine, and it is automatically operating. And the major industries here in the Europe and other places is they're large units, huge, big. We don't have that kind of system. We have small and medium sector, which is a major thing, and there it is very difficult. Unfortunately, these type of things are being enforced in a situation without really testing them in practical situation, how far they are successful. Because I have seen, if you have emission monitoring system, and if Mr. Venkat is suppose he is a supplier of emission monitoring system, automatic monitoring system, if he comes to me, first thing I will ask him, how much is the cost? You will say, I have say X cost. I will say, I want all the time your system should give me a within limit reports. So how will you, if you say, no, it will only give realistic, and if there is a violation, it will be reported, then I will not buy your equipment. Somebody else will come and he will say, okay, sir, I will manage. Don't worry. You buy from me, and he will fix up in such a manner that it will always show within the limit. So this is a big challenge, number one. And because the penalties are very harsh in our case. It is a criminal law, so you have to go in jail. Then with fine or without fine, imprisonment. So these are the scary things which are making more and more our life difficult, rather than making it easy. More or less, it should be for the internalization. So as to that, you should monitor within your battery limit. You have the continuous sensors where you can say, oh, it is going high. It's a qualitative assessment, not the quantity, where you can take it and put in person on the task. Second thing is, these type of things are not practical also. Like, for example, BOD, biological oxygen demand, you cannot have. Similarly, there are others like, particulate matter in the, when I am saying there may be people that say, no, Goralkar sahab, this is not correct, you are wrong. I accept it is wrong. But there are people who are providing these kind of things with sensors. The question there is the sensors are to be taken as a qualitative assessment and they should not have the regulatory strength. That's what my personal opinion is, because such sensors are not calibrated, or if calibrated, they are not certified. And we do not have an Indian certifying calibrating institute which will do it officially. Number one, we have now recently set up National Physical Laboratory at Delhi, is designated as agency to certify. But this is only a recent 6 months, 7 months back. It will take some time. So what my take on this is that we should not go left, right, and center for such emission system. They should be first made very optional. They should not have much regulatory enforcement. Suppose if there is a violation, then it will, because you are doing one thing, if it is taken as violation, then life will become difficult. Your all other compliances will go away in vain. One violation in some indicator in somewhere will spoil the whole क्या बोलते हैं ना milk, one drop of salt. Similarly, this is not good and it doesn't serve the basic purpose. Here the aim is not to punish go out of the way and punish the project proponent or harass him. That should not be the reason. So this will take some time to evolve, but there are different kinds of views in system and outside system. So we have to go. But most happily, situation is CPCB has exempted medium, small industries from the requirement of this continuous emission monitoring system.
Thank you, sir. So we will switch gears, sir, with your permission, and we'll discuss some practical questions, sir. Few questions, and then we will open the floor for Q&A from the participants, sir.
Yeah.
So first one is, about in your views, what kind of documentation and governance structures best protects the directors and against the and officers from personal liability, which is a very sensitive part, right? Like you elucidated that it's a criminal offense. It's not just we can get away with the fine, So
Yes.
what in your view is the, best practice or something you can give tips to our audience and, for us, sir?
See, as far as the industry's violations are concerned or corporate violations are concerned, there are two types. One is corporates owned by the public, private companies, and the government-owned companies. The Act provides separate procedures for government company violations as well as the industries, private industry, you can say public-private industries. The entire onus of compliance is on one person, that is occupier. If you see the Act or the authorization, consent, environment clearance is granted to the occupier, and occupier is the one who is responsible for the entire affairs of running the plant. One board of directors may have 10 units in 10 different states. Board of directors may be the same, 10 people. So anything happen on one of those 10 locations, these 10 people will not be held responsible. But occupier who is responsible on that particular unit will be responsible. That's number one. However, there is a vicarious responsibility assigned in the law to the board of directors. If your children are doing wrong things, the parents are also they are responsible because they have to groom them properly. So this is how is also there is called in the legal terms vicarious responsibility. The board has to do that, number one. And board has to, in such cases, if there is an unfortunate incident, then they have to establish that as far as the violation or the onus of the violation or has to be pointed out, then the directors will not be held responsible. But that is what is required. And there are cases I know, I could not say that, where the directors are in trouble today because of such cases which are taken by the file to the directors, For example, sometimes when the plant is under commissioning, so all these things, the directors are not completely absorbed of their responsibilities when such projects are taking place. So it is better idea or better advice. I was on the board of directors of few companies, corporate companies, which are listed companies. And we used to assign a particular director to look after the such compliances requirements in a prompt manner. And there has to be a policy. Then now recently one group has defined the targets and that how much carbon neutral they will be in next 20 years and so on. So these ESG and BRSR is, I think, in my personal view, one step towards removing the liabilities of the directors actually in that. I hope I have clarified a little
Yes,
bit.
sir. Very, very much, sir. And a small follow-up question, sir. Sir, you nicely mentioned about the vicarious liability. If you take a parallel with the labor law, since Aparajita and a lot of our clients and all the labor law, so we have this notion of principal employer and contractor, those things. So in the similar situation, let's say some company outsources some manufacturing, some process to a different entity, altogether, because we know that entities are the legal person, right? In that case, whom do you think the PCB will go after then? Because see, I am making the product, I give it to somebody else, and ultimately both are kind of responsible, right? So can we get away with it, or what is the view the PCBs, the CPCB take in such, if I can use the word jugglery.
Actually, it depends on how clarity is there between the two. Separation line is how far it is clear. And what we are doing is normally is we are treating each as a separate entity. If you have a one industry in one place, for example, in one 100 acres, you have 5 units, and 5 units have 5 consents. 5 are all independent, but all are in one land parcel, you can say.
Yes,
Owned by
the
one.
impact will be
Huh?
the impact will be 5 times.
Yes, but if one is violating, we will not touch others. That has
Okay.
been our case. Because legally they are independent. They have given a consent. We will go by the consent. If I have given consent to all the 5 units, then whoever is responsible for 5 will be coming in. If there are 5 consent, one person will. So, as far as the regulator is concerned, we go by our consent. Consent is our Bible, Gita, Mahabharata, whatever it is. We cannot do anything without consent. Even if you have environmental clearance, we will convert those environmental clearance conditions in the form of water consent and air consent, except some hazardous and waste hazardous chemicals. And we cannot take action unless you are consented. If you are not concerned, we cannot take any action. In that case, I give you just a small side example. If you do not have consent at all, and there is a emission from your industry premises, wastewater is discharged, and it has caused pollution, board cannot take action against you if you don't know consent.
Oh.
I have to go give you the consent. If you don't apply, I can paste a consent in your premises wall and then prosecute you for violating the consent.
Oh, so it comes indirectly, yeah?
Because we cannot take cognizance unless there is a consent.
Correct. Okay. I think that's where the EC comes in, which better, because you can't even start prayer, so that's great. And one last question, sir. Yeah, prior.
We missed that subject. That word we should have said prior environmental.
Prior, yeah.
That was
the
missed.
key.
Correct.
So one last question from my end, sir. Then we will open the floor for Q&A. So last question is, see, as environmental laws have been, from April, we are going to have a new solid waste management rules 2025, right, sir? So, in your view, these frequent amendments to the environmental laws, how should compliance team manage this transition period, sir? There is some ambiguity in all those things, right? So, we have a lot of laws evolving and all. So, if you can quickly, give
Sorry, I
some.
did not get your question. There was an interruption in the internet.
Okay, let me repeat, sir. Sir, as the environmental laws are changing and new amendments and new laws are getting framed, I took the example of solid waste management rules 2025, which
Yes.
is going to kick in April. So how do you think the compliance team in any entity should cautiously manage this transition period? There's going to be some ambiguity and all. How to safeguard the interests of the company and interest of all the stakeholders in these transition periods?
Very good question, but very difficult to answer because I'm giving you my personal opinion. These laws are becoming more and more complicated. What we need is a more simple, and nowadays these laws are putting more and more onus on the polluter. We have to, as a regulator, I should also take some responsibility. There is not, means if you are not complying, the achieving compliance is a joint responsibility. You achieve the compliance, I secure it as a regulator. That is not happening. Now, if something goes wrong, you will always feel that polluter or project proponent is taken to the task. Nowhere you will see a regulator has gone in the jail or something has happened. Nothing. So you cannot separate, in my opinion, because it has been my practice. I have been doing it, and it is all well laid down. It's open in public domain. How a regulator has to be proactive. He need not be going all the time with what you call stick approach, command and control. That's not the case. Where you have to understand, and that scope is missing in new and new regulations. It is becoming more and more wide. Now 100 kg per day, if you are generating municipal solid waste, you are covered. So what happens? So now 100 kg is what? In joint big families, you may be knowing in Tamil Nadu or in our all over country, we have joint families with 30, 40 people living in one big, or even now for apartments, you can take as a joint family. If there are 200 apartments, it's easily you can have more than 100 kg. Having 200 apartments in one society, housing society, is not very uncommon. So how they are going to face? Now I am living in a society where we have 205 flats. So how are we going to do it? We don't know, because we have trying to do the segregation is not happening. Then we have this composting, then you have the smell problem, then technology. And most important is a service provider. So these regulations are very good, but you have to have the service. I will put it in a different way. Pollution is my fundamental right. How? I'll tell you. If I have a right to live, I have right to produce. And if I have right to produce, I have also right to pollute. Isn't it? I cannot produce without pollution. Every day you have to pollute in the morning when you wake up. You have to have, that's a right, fundamental right. You can't say you have right to eat and not right to do. That's the king. But how will I exercise my right to pollute? By engaging the service for protection of environment. And there we are lacking. Today, if you see the common service for environment protection is not adequate. I'm not saying it is upset. For instance, you have industry sector, I said hazardous waste management. We have this hazardous waste, common hazardous waste facilities are created where industries are giving the waste. Now, coming to the municipal solid waste 2026 rules, which you are talked of, where is the city which is going to take care? You will pay. I have no problem. I am generating waste, I am writing polluting. I am exercising my right to pollute. I am ready to pay also for that pollution. But who is there to provide service? Now, take example of any municipal corporation in India. I mean, there is no such corporation which is really able to provide that service. Who is going to provide? And now you are washing your hands, that you are leaving it to the generator. Now, the housing society, what they will do, 100 kg. Government has made themselves free. No, there are some cities like in Indore, Hoga, yeah, Hyderabad, in Chennai, in Bangalore, there are such. In Bangalore, you have the Solid Waste Management Corporation, separately created for that. Or Chennai, you have the very good municipal corporation engaged in removing the legacy waste and all that. In Hyderabad, you have. Now, in Jabalpur, you have, where they are shortage of waste. They need more waste because they have infrastructure. But in Mumbai, Pune, in Maharashtra, many cities I know don't have. Even there is no collection. So when you are not able to collect, now you are asking me, I am generating 100. If I don't, then you will put me in jail for 5 years or 5 lakh fine and 5 lakh with or without fine. So this is something impractical. So these aspects have to be studied, and unless these are proper, the people will definitely will not like to accept it. And you don't know, or I don't know, I cannot imagine how, because ultimately public representatives are going to face the music. I mean, that will be a problem. I mean, it's not so simple. Like in industrial hazardous waste, you have a target industry. Now, in case of municipal solid waste, you have a slum, for example. So 5,000 dwellers are there. How will you implement the law there? So these, creating such legislation is wonderful. You can have a nice dream and a good sleep in the night that you created such a wonderful legislation. But what about the enforcement mechanism? So there are challenges, and they will create some noise, I'm sure, and things should improve. I do not know. I have no solution. But more common sense is required in this whole process.
So thank you very much, sir. Before we open, so just 1 minute, I was when you narrated these things, my mind went back to the landmark place of Ratlam Municipal Corporation, which was taken to task, and then this public trust doctrine, which evolved from the MC Mehta Kamalnath, where the honest is on the regulator on the other side of the thing. So thank you, sir. Now I think we will open the floor for, with your permission, the questions. We will take it from the audience. Catherine, maybe you can take it over.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. This was very insightful, sir. Now I would like to, there are a couple of questions that is put up on the Q&A section. I would like to pose those questions to you, sir. So the first question is, for labor.
Answer them. I don't know how difficult.
Yeah. I would read out that question to you, sir. If for labor compliances, the adherence is due to high vigilance from the Labor Department, but we don't see the same vigilance from PCB Department of State and Center. How is government working to make sure that industries are adhering to PCB compliances? Are there any specific industries where government is non-tolerable?
Government is?
Non-tolerable, sir.
Non-tolerant, okay. You see, I have mentioned in my earlier answer also, comments also, the Pollution Control Board enforcement is not strong enough. It is not adequate enough in terms of quantity or number of people, in terms of the technology available and working conditions and so many issues. For example, if you see the United States Environment Protection Agency, you know how many people are working there? 16,000 in US EPA. And each of the 50 states have their own state environment protection agency. In India, if you see the Central Pollution Control Board, you have only 400 people. And look at the situation of India and America. So that is number one. Then working conditions, service conditions, number of people available. So it is very difficult. If you go by the norms of vigilance compliance, now suppose it is a red category industry, green, red, orange. There are different kinds of industries. Are there red, orange, green, white, and so on. So red industry, as per the norm, you have to visit at least once a month. It is not possible. It is impossible to have them because the alone say biggest state of India is Maharashtra, and Maharashtra Pollution Control Board. If you see in terms of pollution, I don't know the recent data, but sometimes back we were generating 4.2 million tons of hazardous waste in India. Out of that, 2 million ton was from Maharashtra alone, and it is an affidavit in the Supreme Court. So it's not something which I am saying on my own. And that means 50%. But if you see the availability of staff, there are hardly 1,000 people are working. Out of that, 300 to 400 are non-technical administrative supportive staff. So you have only 300 to 400 people covering the entire Maharashtra is so difficult, impossible. So the answer to your question is no, we are lacking in these things. We need to strengthen this system. That is more today, more it is of a response driven. You know, if there is an action, there is a reaction. Sorry, not response, reaction driven. And the last and important is the structure, organizational structure and functional structure of the organization is not adequately enabling to the requirements of the regulation. Have I made clear? It's a very important thing. The organizational structure and functional structure of the organization is not enabling to the compliance requirements given in the various sections under the laws and rules. For example, Section 30, Water Act, provides the power to the board. If you do not put up a sewage treatment plant or effluent treatment plant, I have right to go and construct the plant and control the pollution and recover the cost from you as a land revenue arrears. But board cannot do. We don't have engineers to design, civil engineers to construct, mechanical engineers to put up the mechanical system. We need a complete system. The whole apparatus of regulation needs revamping. So whatever is best possible is being done. And last and most important, the leadership. Leadership of this organization is non-technical, non-specialist people are leading. The guy who is chairman of the member secretary has to have the domain expertise and qualities, experience, education in the domain, which is not the case. So the people below him are finding more difficult. So this is an area where much attention is required to be paid. I'm sorry, I have not been able to convincingly give answer. I don't know.
No, sir, that was actually what we wanted. So the next question, I would like to move on to the next question. How can governments and environmental agencies effectively protect natural resources such as rivers, lakes, ponds, and public spaces under existing laws? Is the real problem a lack of regulations or weak implementation? I think it almost covers what you actually
answered that.
Yeah, through the. I hope that is clarified through the answer that he has given already. The next question I would like to pose is, why aren't single-use plastic manufacturers more strictly regulated, and why does improper disposal continue to be widespread? Is the government planning to strengthen plastic and hazardous waste recycling systems and improve public awareness and civic responsibility at the state, district, and village levels, including schools and colleges?
I'm not a spokesperson of any government, so okay. I cannot talk on behalf of government or anybody, but I can say of the experience. As far as plastics is concerned, I can give my experience and my personal opinion. But plastics is a very important thing. To my knowledge, plastic is more of a management problem than the environmental problem. Because in 2005, we had the famous floods in Mumbai, where it was choking. Mumbai's water was effluent, the stormwater drains were choked up with plastics. And immediately after that, government of Maharashtra had set up a committee on the plastics, a three-member committee. I was one of the member of that committee, and we had formulated the law, 2006 legislation. It is the first state in the country to have the state regulation on plastics. The idea then and now is that actually CPCB had such plastic regulation, but it was more of advisory in terms of the thickness of the carry bags and so on and so forth. But we had come up with more comprehensive legislation with punishments, and all those responsibilities were distributed to the board, municipal corporation, and banning the certain kind of plastics and all. So that is all right on its side. But plastic, if you see, the use of plastic is essential in the life, daily life, you see. And it is on one way, it is also protecting your forest and all that. It is replacing. What is important is we have to have the proper management system. It is mostly coming in the municipal solid waste, in domestic garbage. There, if you have the better systems, you can have the plastics handling properly. And the another thing is that essential to have the recycling, encouraging the recycling. Why we are talking of thickness is because you to pick up the less than 0.5 micron carry bag, even rack pickers, it is not incentive. He has to bend once to take up one. So if there are 100, he has to bend 100 times. And if he collects 100, there is hardly any incentive. If it is a little more thick, then he will collect it more easily and incentivize him for that matter. Then you have to have the recycling facilities, encourage them, promote them in terms of providing technical assistance, certain finance, give them certain more recognition as environmentally sound rather than making a pure corporate sector. And that kind of a thing is required in plastics. More of more, it is better more to recycling, and the regulation itself is in place. And this is what I feel about the plastics.
With your permission, if I can share a few of my thoughts, sir.
Please add.
So
Please add.
since recently my kids, in their school, they had awareness program on, minimizing recycling and, using plastics. So I think that touches upon the question of creating the civil awareness, I think it's going to the, because when I was in school, I don't remember seeing any environment awareness thing, I
Yes,
don't
yes.
remember at all.
Even
Even in
there are so
college.
many alternatives available now, plastics, You have
Exactly,
to have
exactly.
you can have the containers based on your banana leaf dust or the sugarcane husk, rice husk,
Yeah,
sugarcane
starch.
bagasse. So many things are there. And if such things are encouraged, with less, though no GST or even the funding them, so that kind of a thing will be more, because awareness alone is definitely it's very good. But what we need is a change in attitude. Awareness is fine. Everybody knows smoking is injurious to health, but people still do, because there's no question of awareness. They are aware of it, but the attitude has to change, and that is coming. And you rightly pointed out, I forgot to mention, my grandchildren also, they are telling me, oh, this is plastic and these are not firecrackers. We should not immerse the idols in the Ganesh idols or Devi idols in freshwater river and all that. So attitude is awareness is definitely there, but it will slowly improve in reflect into the attitude. I tell you one good example. In 2005, when I was member secretary of Maharashtra Pollution Control Board, we had started awareness campaign on the firecrackers. And what I did was, in a playground, we brought firecrackers, and in presence of various media and press people, we burst them and measured the air pollution and the noise pollution and published the report. During Diwali also we did it, Holi we did, and all the festivals like this Ganesh Puja and noise monitoring we did. And now if you see in 2025, Ganesh Utsav in Pune, we had reduced noise levels. So it is not the alone credit. There is a credit to the enforcement, police and pollution control board, but it is more of, in my opinion, credit to the people who such laws we need, where the peoples are supporting, then there is nothing like it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. I think there is one more last, sorry, there's one more last question. It's more from a view perspective. One of the member, I mean, the employee, they're stating that EHS, Environment, Health and Safety Compliance, primarily falls under the new code. So do you have any statement towards this, sir? Towards his view that if it is primarily falling under the new code, I'm not sure if he's referring to the code, occupational safety and health code. Would you like to put your remarks here?
I didn't understand what is the
meaning. I think what he's referring to, I'm not clear with this statement. What he said is EHS, Environment, Health and Safety Compliance, primarily falls under the new code. Okay, I'm not sure if he's referring to the occupational safety, health code that has come up under the code under labor laws. If he's referring to that, I'm not sure. But if that's the case, would you like to add your remarks here, sir?
No, sorry, I apologize, because inside the occupational we know many things, but they don't really come under our domain. There is a different department of occupational health safety and boilers inspection. We coordinate. I have been working with them for many years as our co-brothers, because our interaction is essential. Many times some accident takes place, we go there and we take help, and vice versa. But I do not know about the code, EHS code. What is it?
Sir, I think what they are referring to is if, in the labor law domain, the labor laws has been consolidated into 4 codes. It started in way back in 2019. First code came, and then there is one code called occupational. Let me read exactly: Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code 2020. It primarily deals with the laborers, the employees. Even though we are also part of environment, it affects us. It's a specific code, and there are other laws which have been subsumed under this code. I think they are referring to that.
Actually, the occupational norms, as I was telling, we are co-brothers. For example, working atmosphere, you have also SO2 standard. Ambient also you have SO2 standard. So what happens is, in case of occupational standards, the standards are different because the exposure community is different. The people working there are in a particular age group of, say, 20 to 50 or maybe 58 or like that. Then they have the health protecting gears are there, mask and all those things. Their health checkup is there. Then their precautionary diet is given. Then testing is given. Therefore, the emission norms of the occupational health and safety are more. For example, if the SO2 emission is 1 in ambient air, we will permit 5 in occupational working area. Similarly, so apart from that, there's not much of connecting to our side, pollution control regulation side. Sorry, I could not be more explaining.
No, very nice of you, sir. Very nice of you. Just to add, I think that is it complements and supplements all the other acts, sir. So, and it's a sphere of influence is very limited, like you said. It affects only those things, unlike environment, which encompasses the entire thing. Thank you very much. Any other questions from audience, Catherine? Or
yes, sir. There's one more last question. I think with that we'll wrap it up for today. Why can't single-use plastic manufacturing is banned? Why can't single-use plastic manufacturing be banned? That's a question from her. Yes, sir. So would you like to add your insights onto that?
Single-use plastic is already banned. It is permitted only up to certain thickness. As I explained, if it is more than 0.5, actually CPCB wants 0.8. Sorry, I said reversely. MPCB wanted 0.5, CPCB permits Sorry, just give me a minute. CPCB wants 0.8 and we want FPCB at that time 0.5 because thickness, single-use plastic is mostly, what is the problem? Because disincentive for its recycling and it flows with the air, it becomes omnipresent and therefore it should be banned. But banning alone is not enough. If you have the better encouraging the recycling, if you permit more thicker than that, then it will have less impact. So answer to that question is yes, single-use plastics are banned to the extent that their thickness is 0.5 or something. This is, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, that was really insightful. So we are wrapping it up for today. We extend our heartfelt appreciation to our speakers for such a well-structured and impactful session. What stood out to me in particular was the way you clearly distinguished the responsibilities of companies while also candidly acknowledging where gap exists, whether in governance, enforcement strength, or the need for simplification of laws. So the balanced perspective you brought, the compliance is not just a corporate burden, nor solely a regulatory function, but a shared responsibility across industry, government, and society was truly impactful. So it gave us a balanced view rather than a one-sided narrative. So the discussion helped us decode regulatory expectations, understand both industry agnostic and sector specific compliance nuances, and move beyond checklist based compliance towards risk based preparedness. So the field-driven insights, clarity on gray areas, and interactive Q&A truly strengthened our compliance readiness across roles today, sir. So we also we would like to extend our heartfelt appreciation and thanks towards your time. And also, we would like to thank to all our participants for joining us today and engaging with discussion. Your presence made the session even more valuable. So I would like to post. So if there is any more questions from your end, from the joiners, the attendees, we would post a particular mail ID. You can post to us. We would be happy to address those. I once again thank everyone for joining this webinar for today, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. It's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure always.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, sir.
again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Catherine.